how one Nazi leader outlived the regime in silence. Good evening, dear friends. For decades after the Second World War ended, one of the most closely guarded prisons in Europe held a single man. No crowds, no fellow inmates, just silence, surveillance, and time. Rudolf Hess had once stood at the very center of Nazi power, a man who believed himself indispensable to history. Yet his final years unfolded far from rallies or battlefields, inside a nearly empty prison watched by hundreds of guards from rival nations. In August 1987, at the age of 93, Hess was found dead inside that prison complex. Officially, the story was simple, but simplicity rarely survives when history leaves so many unanswered questions. Tonight's story is not about myth-making or spectacle. It is about isolation, loyalty, and the strange end of a man who never abandoned belief, even when the world he served had long since collapsed. After the war, Germany was unstable and disoriented, and Hess struggled to find purpose. It was during this period that he encountered Adolf Hitler. The encounter changed everything. Hess was not simply persuaded by Hitler's speeches, he became devoted to them. He joined the Nazi Party early and quickly emerged as one of Hitler's most loyal followers, motivated less by ambition than by belief. To Hess, Hitler represented clarity, destiny, and restoration. As the Nazi movement grew, Hess followed closely. He protected Hitler during violent incidents, worked as his personal secretary, and became a trusted presence within the inner circle. When the regime took power, Hess rose with it. He gained influence across multiple areas of government and played a role in shaping laws that excluded and marginalized entire segments of German society. He viewed these measures not as cruelty, but as necessary steps toward what he believed was national renewal. By the outbreak of the Second World War, Hess occupied a position of immense prestige. Yet beneath his loyalty lay growing anxiety. As Germany expanded its military campaigns, Hess became increasingly concerned about the strategic consequences. He feared that Germany could not prevail if it faced multiple major powers at once, particularly if Britain remained in the war while Germany turned eastward. Acting on this fear, Hess conceived a plan that would ultimately define the rest of his life. In 1941, without authorization from Hitler, he arranged a solo flight to Britain. His intention was to negotiate peace directly, bypassing formal channels. Hess believed that influential figures within the British establishment would recognize the value of his proposal and pressure their government to end the conflict. The plan collapsed immediately. Hess was arrested as soon as he landed, and British authorities dismissed his overtures outright. When news reached Berlin, Hitler reacted with fury. Hess was stripped of all positions, denounced as a traitor, and erased from the regime's public narrative. In a matter of hours, a man once central to power became a liability. Hess remained in British custody for the rest of the war. When the conflict ended, he was brought before the Nuremberg Tribunal. Unlike some defendants who attempted to justify or distance themselves from the regime, Hess remained detached and unrepentant. He did not deny his loyalty or his beliefs. The court sentenced him to life imprisonment, and he was transferred to Spandau Prison in Berlin. Spandau was built to house hundreds of inmates. Over time, as other convicted officials were released or died, Hess became its sole prisoner. By the mid-1960s, an enormous facility guarded by rotating contingents from former Allied powers existed for one man alone. Every aspect of his life was regulated. His routines were observed. His correspondence was monitored. The prison became less a place of confinement than a symbol of unfinished history. For many years, Hess refused visits from his family. Isolation became part of his identity. As time passed, his physical and mental health declined. He complained of constant pain, insomnia, and memory problems. He believed his food was being tampered with and remained deeply suspicious of those around him. Repeated requests for parole were submitted on the basis of age and illness, but they were consistently rejected. Despite decades of confinement, Hess never renounced National Socialist ideology. He did not express regret for his role in the regime or for the policies he had supported. To him, imprisonment was not evidence of wrongdoing, but of betrayal and misunderstanding. His worldview remained intact, frozen in a moment long past. By the 1980s, Hess was in his 90s. He was nearly blind, walked with difficulty, and required assistance for everyday tasks. Yet, security protocols remained unchanged. Hundreds of guards continued to watch a man who no longer posed any practical threat. His imprisonment had become symbolic, sustained as much by memory as by necessity. On August 17, 1987, Hess was found lifeless inside a small garden structure within the prison grounds. A handwritten note was discovered in his pocket. Authorities concluded that he had ended his life using materials found nearby. The official explanation was brief and final. Almost immediately, doubts surfaced. Observers questioned how a man of such advanced age and limited mobility could have acted without detection. Others pointed to his physical limitations, which appeared inconsistent with the circumstances described. His family and legal representatives rejected the official account, suggesting that outside involvement could not be ruled out and claiming that Hess had been preparing to reveal sensitive information. Multiple investigations followed. Medical examinations supported the conclusion that he had taken his own life, yet uncertainty persisted. Decades of secrecy surrounding his imprisonment, combined with the unusual nature of his confinement, left space for speculation to thrive. Shortly after his death, Spandau Prison was demolished. The site was erased to prevent it from becoming a symbolic gathering place. With that act, the final physical trace of Hess's long confinement disappeared. What remained was ambiguity. Rudolf Hess's story is often framed as a mystery, but its deeper significance lies elsewhere. It is a study in loyalty carried to its extreme, in belief preserved long after relevance has faded, and in punishment that extended far beyond the moment of power. Unlike others who adapted or reevaluated their past, Hess never recalibrated his worldview. His isolation was not only imposed by the world outside, but sustained by his refusal to reconsider the past. In the end, his life illustrates how ideology can outlast defeat, how belief can persist without power, and how history sometimes leaves behind figures who exist less as individuals than as symbols of unresolved memory. Rudolf Hess did not die as a powerful man. He died as a relic of belief, guarded long after his influence had faded, confined long after his relevance had passed. The uncertainty surrounding his final moments reflects a broader discomfort with unresolved history. Not every story ends cleanly. Not every chapter offers closure. What Hess's life ultimately reveals is not mystery, but persistence. The persistence of ideology, the persistence of loyalty, and the persistence of questions when accountability and memory collide. His story reminds us that defeat does not automatically dissolve belief, and that history's longest shadows are often cast not by action, but by refusal to change. Because sometimes, the most unsettling truths are not about how power is gained, but how it lingers, even when the world has moved on.